Welcome to another episode of Young Entrepreneurs with the Green Roof team. Today we have Prem Rana coming back onto the show to talk about projects that we had going on in the past 2.5 years. How are you doing today, Prem?
What's up? I'm doing pretty good. It's been a good day.
Nice. So to get today's episode kicked off, would you like to tell the audience a bit about yourself?
Yeah, so as he said, my name is Prem Rana. I'm one of the co-founders of the Green Roof team. And I'm primarily focused on specifically in the Green Roof team on marketing and also working on some product development and stuff. Kind of got my hands in all over the place. And I'll talk a little bit about what I did in the past when we talk more about some of the past projects. But outside the Green Roof team, I do some music stuff, I do some video production stuff, and I like long walks in the forest.
And you do like to go hiking, and
I
there's
do. We've
a
done
lot of great hikes down Southern
That's
Oregon.
actually where we've come up with some pretty good ideas on hikes. So,
Sweet.
listen, guys. If you're gonna stop listening from this point on, the lesson of today is to just take a hike, and that's where you'll find innovation.
So from all these hikes that we've taken, were there any cool ideas that came out of them?
I think we started talking about some of because I think we had a hike after one of our meetups that we did for UIF, which helped kind of spark some of the ideas that or some of the projects that we had for the Green Roof team. I don't remember which one, but I'm pretty sure it was was it like when we were walking around the lake?
I believe so.
Yeah. So for those who are unaware, at SIU, there's this camp on campus. We both lived on campus, and there's this lake right outside our dorm. And so there's a trail that's I don't think it's a mile long, but it's
Oh, it's
fairly.
like 2 miles long.
It's 2 miles. Are you serious? Oh
Yeah.
my well, okay, so it's pretty long, and so we decided one day to just go for a walk around it. And so we talked about stuff, and I guess eventually we were talking about some of the ideas that we had from a University Innovation Fellows meetup that we went to, where we were able to kind of ideate and meet with other people who gave us really cool ideas. And so that, yeah, I remember we were walking and you saw a solar panel, right? And you're like, I think I could steal that or something like that. And I was like, I don't think, where would you put it if you could steal it? And he's like, I don't know where I put it. And then that eventually led to, we should put solar panels on every roof of the building. And so that's kind of how we came to the idea of like the core foundation of the Green Roof. Or like the core concept of the Green Roof.
No, to be honest, I forgot about that walking and that conversation, but bringing up that panel, I just remembered it all.
Yeah. 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 That's like, would you say if we had I mean we've done solar, but if like the scope allowed it and we had like more time, would you have put a solar panel on every building on campus?
If we had the grant money, we would have. That one we applied for back in fall of 2021, if that went through, the ag building would have had solar all over that rooftop and probably would have made that building probably net zero. But it didn't go through.
It's okay. We did set up I guess that leads us to a perfect introduction for one of the projects that we worked on. So one of the projects we just recently installed as part of our time over the past 2.5 years was kind of a solar flower is the best way to put it. Would you say?
I would call it like a hybrid system of wind and solar in one place.
Yeah, where essentially you have a wind turbine in the middle of it, and we have four solar panels around it. And so that we just installed a few months ago. It's currently June of 2022, and we installed that May of 2022. So about a month ago. Wow. And yeah, what that's doing now is we have it hooked up to a hybrid controller, which is the generate power for the roof. And eventually, I think maybe it's a little bit out of the scope of our hands since we're gone, but I know we had talked about getting that grid tied And so that'd be really cool. But that was one cool thing that we definitely did.
Yeah, that was an incredible project, and getting an installation done takes a lot of work, especially from like more of the bureaucracy side, getting the approvals, getting the design validations, and us like going through that first year or 2 years ago and getting that first small wind turbine up that actually got coined baby turbine, but by the engineers, helped us this past year to get the taller ones up that were about what, twice the height of them, twice the height of the first one.
Oh yeah, I think it was like you could. We moved the turbines for those who are unaware. So for our visual people, you can see in our backgrounds that we have this wind turbine picture. There's mine like right over my head's covered here, right over here, and it's right there. We actually moved that turbine to the other side of the building, to where when you're walking in front of the agriculture building and even kind of in the parking lot of the agriculture building, you can see this turbine spinning. And then you can also see now the second turbine that's not too far away from it. I think that's the gray mount. That's the gray color mount. Yeah. And so that one is our tallest one. And that one I'm pretty sure is 2 times as big.
Yeah, I believe the mount's about 12 feet tall, and then with the blades and the generator, you add maybe another 3 feet, so about like 15-ish. So about the height of a basketball hoop.
Yeah. And so we also, from there, we had another one that has a green mount. That one it's not too far from where this original turbine was placed, maybe a little bit in the middle of the building, but you can still see it from the side, I'm pretty sure. Um, yeah, so those were, I guess that leads to the next part, which with the hybrid, we also installed the vertical axis wind turbine way back a year ago, I think. Right? Yeah, a year ago. And so that was how we're kind of going backwards chronologically, but that was how we got inspired to install the hybrid system, because before we didn't know much about wind energy at all, and so with the help of team members from all around the world, we are able to really dig our heels into wind energy, really understand how to make it happen, and I'm speaking for the team, but the team really put in a lot of time and effort to make this a reality, and that turned a lot of heads on campus. I'll say that it turned a lot of heads on campus.
Oh, 110%. A lot of people were talking about us. They want to see the final product, and it's so many stakeholders, so many supporters involved, just wanting to hear about updates and seeing what the final product looked like. It was incredible, all the support we got for it.
Yeah, I'll actually ask you, since you were more involved than I was, what would you say was like the most okay, besides the installation, because the installation is obviously a very memorable part, but what was the most memorable part of that wind turbine project as a whole, that first temporary wind turbine that we put up?
That first wind turbine, I would say the best memory was an in-person one where, well, I can do an in-person and a virtual one. For in-person, I remember I had Steven and Gustavo, we were in the lab. We had Alex on the computer, one of our team members from Maryland, and we were testing out the battery system. So we had the generator hooked up to the power board, which was connected to the battery. We also had a power sensor going on, and we would just be amazed by spinning the generator and seeing what the multimeter was putting out, seeing the battery getting charged. That was incredible. We actually got a video of that, I believe, on the YouTube. And then from a virtual side, I'd say it would be one of our first meetings where every team member came in, had drawings of what they wanted to see the mount look like, the tower design, how many blades and what the blade system looks like. We threw in all of our ideas into a spreadsheet, and then we were voting on which ideas were the most feasible, cost effective, and from a technical side, feasible. And we just had this incredible matrix, had everyone's ideas involved, and that helped guide us on what that first turbine looked like. Of course, we found out later in time that we had a lot more constraints, such as not being able to anchor into the roof. Maybe we had to purchase a set of blades and generator online, so that limited what options we had, and just overall helped guide us through that process. But I'm remembering that spreadsheet and all of us just diving in, I think 15 of us at the time. That was incredible and showed that even with the pandemic, we were able to come together and bring all these different ideas from an engineering side and collaborate online.
Nice, yeah. And like I know for when I was up there and when I was helping out with the installation, like you could see kind of the excitement and really everyone's ideas when that was being put together. You could see like they're in their eyes, like the actualization, like that moment that this is actually happening. And so it was definitely a big turning point for our kind of our project as a whole. But it's not, besides the two systems that we've had, it's not the only turbine that we've worked on. I know there's one other turbine that we have that you might know a little bit more about. The disaster wind turbine.
Yes, that's a great segue. Another project we had going on this past year was the disaster resilient wind turbine, or what we called the trash turbine. So imagine you have, it is plastic, it's amazing, it's memorable. So imagine you had all these different materials from like wood, PVC, any like building materials just lying around, and you need to find some kind of use out of it. So that's the vision behind the trash turbine, is taking all these common items that usually are junk or thrown away or just set aside and never seen for a long time, and reusing it towards generating wind energy. So the use case that we saw was focused around Puerto Rico. If they get hit by say a hurricane or a natural disaster, usually they're out of power. Their electrical grid has a tendency to go out based on the feedback we were receiving. And if they're able to, say, set up a standalone wind turbine, they can use their natural wind resource in the area, capture that wind, send it to a battery, and be able to use it to, say, charge their phones, charge small electrical devices, and be able to have power that they can use as a best seedbed. And it was an incredible project. It had so many different layers to it, from understanding the different users, empathizing with them, seeing materials that are available and finding what constraints we saw, the tower needing to withstand so much wind force, the blades being X amount reliable, what can the electrical system have in, say, a kit, because you can't commonly find a amazing wind charge controller or other electrical components. So seeing what materials we have available, which ones we would actually get off the shelf, and then coming together, deciding on the best procedures on assembly for the best designs, and just reiterating upon it.
Yeah, it's definitely it's something that I personally was not a lot of hands on, so I couldn't give a lot of insight into it, which is why I delegated that to you.
Yeah, and probably the best memory of that project, and I know you're in the lab quite a bit when we're on it here and there, was probably in the first couple of weeks. We went, scavenged a few items. We got a couple microwaves, got a couple of like bicycle tire rims, and we just began deconstructing stuff, seeing what components they had, taking apart alternators, taking apart the microwave, and seeing and ideating so many different concepts on how might we use what we have here towards building this wind turbine in the end.
Definitely.
But taking that step back, that first wind turbine we installed on the ag building, it was powering another project, wasn't it?
That it was. So this is the project that I'm most familiar with. I think I was pretty much I was the project manager for it. And that's the autonomous irrigation system. It's one of the first projects we worked on. And so for those who are a little bit unaware, essentially what we wanted to do with the autonomous irrigation system was we wanted to create a system that watered the plot of land on there. It's the one that's for my visual people. It's right this background right here. This plot of land, we wanted it to water itself. essentially. And so the way that we did it was we had all these small sensors that were off the shelf, and we put those into the soil, and we connected that all to three central, I guess we'll call them nodes. Um, and those nodes collected all that data, and then that node got sent to essentially like a master system where that data was then processed, and we ran machine learning on it to kind of predict when the soil would need water, and that soil then would from there we would have a solenoid valve that's automatically controlled by that master system, and that's sending water. And so that's kind of the high level overview of it. And it took a long time. It took nearly the entire span of the project because I'm not an agriculture major, so I had to learn a lot about ways to make a system that's non-intrusive, that's easy to maintain, that's scalable, and learning about how all these different variables can affect the machine learning model. And on top of that, now introducing the wind element into it and having that power come from the wind turbine. So a lot of different things. But to kind of answer some of the questions on like my favorite memory, I want to say it was there's a few moments. One of my favorite memories, I think, was when we were initially creating the circuit for the solenoid valve. And so at the time we were looking at online for like circuits on how to do it. And there are a few circuits on how to do it, but they never really were explained pretty well. And on top of that, they used vastly different equipment than we had. We in our lab, we had this giant it's like a voltage regulator, right? Or something like that. It's not necessarily a battery, but it was this giant thing, which like was really old for starters too. And so we needed to buy separate cables to adapt it to our circuit because we were using like small wires, and so we had to get separate cables to connect those wires to it. And then all that time it still wasn't working, and then eventually I think we swapped out one of the capacitors or something like that. And I remembered finally being able to hear a click in the solenoid valve, which we weren't able to do for the longest time. Like we were worried we got the wrong solenoid valve or like that it just wasn't working. But I remember we like switched out the capacitor and we plugged it in, and you can feel like the solenoid valve move, meaning that it was turning on. So we knew that not only the code that we wrote was working, but that the circuit was working. And as someone who was only doing computer science at the time, I knew my code would work, but the electrical part, I had no idea would work. So that was definitely a memorable moment for sure. And it's kind of these moments like these that have happened many times throughout the past 2.5 years. And it's something that we hope we continue to do.
Most definitely. So I liked how we talked about all the technical projects, but could you remind the audience about the first project that we had going on with the green roof?
Yeah, I think the first project we actually had was these design thinking workshops. And so this permeates directly from, as we mentioned earlier, me and Nelson went to a few meetups for the University Innovation Fellows. And the University Innovation Fellow, that whole program is to kind of teach students to become change makers on campus, where they're giving us this training and these ideas and sort of these methods of really inspiring other people and actuating your ideas into something that also creates change on campus. And so one of the big ideas behind that is this idea of design thinking, where essentially it's really a different way of ideating and coming up with these ideas, essentially thinking about design thinking. And so when we did that in Austria, we've done it through our training, but that was my at least first real experience with design thinking in an experience like that. And it really inspired both of us to try and bring it on the campus, because with the green roof, we had a lot of ideas, but we couldn't do it alone. And we needed a lot more like-minded people. And the best way to find like-minded people is to hold these workshops where we could really ideate with different people, and we could connect with different people on campus, and we can inspire different people, and we can also recruit different people. Less on the recruitment part, but really in the inspiration, and like inspiring people and getting people excited. That was a core kind of requirement for us when we were making these design thinking workshops. And so you, me, Jacob, and Grant, who are two fellow UIF members, they graduated a year before us. And the Green Roof team was definitely inspired by some of their beliefs with agriculture. We each hosted a workshop, and I would say that overall is a big success, and it really showed us the potential that we could do something on campus, because going from maybe just joining UIF to then jumping to the Green Roof team would have been pretty. It would have. I think it would have had a lot more challenges than if we hadn't necessarily done these design thinking workshops. That's what I would say, at least.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the most impactful behind UIF is being able to find a new, unique way, at least to us, on bring new people in for a short amount of time and getting ideas from them, seeing what kind of vision they have for the project as a whole. And I feel that's how at least the wind turbine came to be, was how can we find a way to connect those people and help bridge a communication gap of people on campus, specifically students, to the green roof, the space that's about a story up and on top of a building. And it's like, okay, maybe if we have this wind turbine, this tangible project up there that we can not only market, but that will be up there, students can make that connection by visually seeing it and hopefully lead to curiosity questions, such as what is that, to what is up there and how can I become involved.
A lot of good information on there and details on everything that we've done for the past 2.5 years. And I would say that, the first 2.5 years of the project were just the beginning. We've done so much there, but the next 2.5 years are gonna seem like exponentially so much more. So I'm excited. I'm excited, and I hope everyone listening and everyone watching is excited too.
Ditto, I couldn't agree more. Back 2.5 years ago, if you asked us what we'd be doing present day, I don't think we would talk about like all the projects we had going on and where we're heading into. So definitely it was like, I would say from my perspective, building up, and we just kept adding more as we could hold on to. Saw a couple of projects die, but the ones that made it are the ones that we believed the most and had a great impact. Cool. So Prem, thanks again for coming on the show today. And thank you to everyone for listening. When you have a chance, we appreciate it if you can give us a like and rating on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on wherever you find your podcastings. And if you're interested in learning more, please visit us at greenroofteam.com. And remember, folks, stay sustainable.